Hi, my name is Lou Duke, and I am a recovering perfectionist. I am also a wife, a mom, a grandmother, and a mental health professional in the downtown Salt Lake City area. I'm a certified Daring Way facilitator, which means that I've had the honor and the privilege of being able to be trained by Brené Brown in some of her research and writings. She has been working at the University of Houston for many years, studying topics such as shame and vulnerability, perfectionism, courage, compassion, connection, disconnection, resilience, wholehearted living, just to name a few of the things. These topics are topics that are really resonating with us today as we try to work through our struggles, particularly as moms, to know that we are enough. We're not perfect, but we're enough. And so I'm really appreciative and happy to be a part of this I Am Mom Summit today, that we can, that I can share some information with you, and that we have this online format to have that happen. So let's talk about perfectionism. Brené Brown would say that shame is the birthplace of perfectionism. Shame is the fear of disconnection. So if we were to try to look at the origins of how we develop shame and what goes on, we have to recognize that initially it starts between two people, probably a primary caregiver or a parent and a young child. And it does tend to happen pretty young, or start pretty young. Let's do a little scenario here. Let's say there's a mom that's out in the yard with her child, and the child is playing with a ball, and the ball bounces into the street. And of course the child follows right after it. And the mom sees this and yells at the child and says, "What are you doing? Get out of the street. Get over here." Initially, that can seem like a very shaming type of interaction. But what happens right after that can make all the difference in the world. If the mom, once the child gets in the yard, throws her arms around him and says, "Oh my gosh, I was so scared when I saw you in the yard. I was so worried that a car might come and hurt you. And if you got hurt, I would be devastated. I would be so sad." Well, what that does is that the initial message, which, like I say, could, possibly be shaming, because the child say, "Oh my gosh, I'm in the street. This is wrong. This is bad. It must be bad because mom's mad at me, and I, have obviously done something really wrong here, and I don't want to risk her not loving me anymore." But when mom responds that, "I'm so sad if something could happen to you," it sort of balances things out, so he knows that he's loved, that he belongs, and that he's worthwhile. If, on the other hand, mom, when he gets back in the yard and mom goes, "What were you thinking? Don't you know how dangerous that was? That was a terrible thing for you to do. I can't believe you do that. I want you to go to your room right now and think about what I just said." That continues the shame, telling him that he's bad, that he has really messed up, that you are really mad at him. And it can be really easy for him to feel like, "Oh my gosh, how do I change things around? This connection with my mom, because I love her and I need to be taken care of, is so important." So sometimes kids will start, not all kids, but some kids will start at a very young age, and that if I'm really good, then mom and dad will like me. Or if I do really well in something, or if I please them, or if I do things perfectly, then I will be worthy of love and belonging. So if that negative message is repeated often enough over time, that shame core develops. And it's different It's a different intensity to all of us. But some of us respond with, if I do better, if I'm perfect, then I will be accepted, I will belong, and everything will be okay. Dr. Brown talks about a total of 4 different emotions that sometimes get interchanged or confused with shame. And the first is shame, that fear of disconnection. It's very isolating. It feels like we're the only one, and it's usually something that we're not really ready or wanting to maybe share with other people because we are afraid of being judged. We're afraid that if people really knew what I was like, they wouldn't like me. So I'm not going to tell them about this, about me. And so it's very isolating. Guilt, on the other hand, is different. Guilt is behaviorally based. It's, I've done something wrong. I ran out into the road. That was the thing that I did wrong. It isn't because I am wrong, it's I did something wrong. So shame is I am bad. Guilt is I did something bad. We can change behavior. We can't change, or we don't believe that we can change the essence of who we are. Then the third one is humiliation. And humiliation is, physiologically, it can feel like shame. You know, you may have that wave of emotion wash over you, or maybe your heart starts beating faster, or maybe you get tunnel vision, or you feel small or really, really young, and maybe your stomach ties up in knots. There can be some physiological things going on that might be very unique to you, but the shame response tends to have some pieces that are kind of universal. So with humiliation, you may feel this shame response, but the part that's different about it is that with humiliation, you don't feel like you deserved it. You don't feel like the person was being fair to you and that it was just totally undeserved. If the child went to his room after mom had banished him to timeout, if he went to his room and said, my mom is the meanest mom in the whole world, you know, she shouldn't have talked to me like that, and this actually would have taken an older child than 4 years old, but if they have that kind of response to what was done, that would be humiliation. We don't believe we deserve the treatment that we've received. And the thing here is if you're experiencing humiliation, you're much more likely to share that story with somebody, whereas with shame, you're not going to tell anybody. The last one is embarrassment. And embarrassment tends to be short, fleeting, funny, hopefully soon, quickly, funny. But we know we're not alone. We know that other people have experienced the same type of thing. Maybe we've done it before, maybe we'll do it again, but it's a story that we're willing to share, that that we know we're not alone. And so the shame is I am bad. Guilt is I did something bad. Humiliation is I don't deserve it. And the embarrassment is this is not a really big deal. To illustrate this just really quickly, a couple of months ago I had a grandson who was in a program. And right before the program started, he and his mom had a little disagreement going on. But he went up and he got with his group and he, participated in the program and he presented his lines. He did a really nice job. And as he was finishing up and before he sat down, he looked right at his mom and stuck his tongue out. And it wasn't one of those, gotcha. It was like, this one's for you, Mom. So just pay attention. And everybody laughed. I laughed too. But after I got home and got to thinking about it, and I didn't say anything to her, I didn't talk to her about it at the time, but I wondered which of those 4 she experienced. Did she feel shame, like, oh, if I had been a better mother, that never would have happened? Or guilt, I should have gone over some things with him, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate to do in a presentation. Or humiliation, I didn't deserve that, my kid knows better, he shouldn't be acting that way. Or embarrassment, like, there he goes, what are you gonna do? If that was your child, how would you have responded? How would you have felt? But to sort of think about it for a second, because what is shaming for one person may be embarrassment for another. Or if it's humiliating for somebody, maybe it's, guilt for somebody else. So we all experience what is shameful and what is not shameful, depending on our value system, our experiences, our life experiences, and the situation. So sometimes we can't automatically assume that people are feeling shame or guilt or humiliation or embarrassment, because we're basing that off of our own stuff. So sometimes we have to check with them, because the way out of shame is being able to share the shame, to be able to talk to someone about your experience. Remember, it's isolating. You don't want to let anybody know what you've just gone through. And so to be able to find someone to share the shame experience with, to let them know what's been going on, so that they can say, not to sugarcoat it or make it better, but to hear you, so that you can be heard and understood and validated in that way. Because what shame, like I say, it's that fear of disconnection. But perfectionism is, if I say anything, what will people say? What will people think? And that's what keeps shame from being shared. When you do share your shame, you need to make sure that it's with somebody that, what Brené calls, has earned the right to hear it. Somebody that's going to honor your story, somebody that's not going to go and post it on social media. They're not going to share it with another friend, that they're going to honor it, keep it safe. They're not going to make fun of you. They're not going to shame you. They're not going to try to fix it, but they're going to empathize with what it is that you've experienced, and to be able to validate that, yeah, that was hard, or that might not have been a good decision. What are you going to do now? I recently shared some hard stuff with a friend and colleague of mine, and I loved her response. We were texting back and forth, and she texted me back. She goes, the thing I love about you is the way you really get yourself in a pickle, and then you go ahead and you do it, and you learn from it, and things turn out okay. That was exactly what I needed to hear. It wasn't flowery. It wasn't, she didn't discount what it was that I was flipping out over, but she was able to validate that I'd be okay. And that's what we're looking for. But that perfectionism is gonna mess us up every time, because it's gonna try to keep us from telling people what's going on, because we worry about their judgments. We worry about them saying, oh, you're not good enough. Or, who do you think you are? Or, why would you do that? So that perfectionism can really mess us up and really trip us up often. Very often what I will do with my clients is, when we get into perfectionism stuff, I'll say, how many people do you really know who live a perfect life? And of course the answer to that is, well, no one. And then I'll say, well, how about in the history of the world? How many people do you know of that might have been perfect? And the answer I usually get is Jesus Christ. And I'll say, really? Well, what happened to him? well, they weren't very nice to him. They beat him up, they spit on him, and they ultimately crucified him. And my question is if you believe that Jesus Christ led a perfect life, but yet people feared him, they mistreated him, they crucified him, and he had a perfect life, then why is it that you believe if you do everything perfectly, that people will automatically love and accept you? It's true, we do. We think if I do everything perfectly, people cannot ignore me. They can't, they've got to accept and think I'm great and wonderful. But they don't. That doesn't always happen. There was a guy out of the University of California 20, 30 years ago. His name was Leo Biscaglia. And he used to say that you can be the most incredibly wonderful peach, perfect peach. You are the most perfect peach in the whole world. But there's some people who just don't like peaches. It has nothing to do with the peach. They just don't like peaches. They only like bananas. So you try to be a banana. And why do you do that when you're already a perfect peach? That as you are is just fine. Sometimes in our perfectionism, we have these prerequisites and these lists of things that I will be worthy when I am a perfect mom, or I get pregnant, or I'm a certain dress size or weight, or I live in a certain neighborhood, or I get a promotion at work. And we set ourselves up that we have to do that in order to consider ourselves or look perfect to other people. Social media is a terrible place. You guys know this, that it's a terrible place where comparison is going on all the time. And you only get literally a snapshot of what that person is going through. I can promise you that there are no perfect lives. We all have struggle. We all have something that we have to deal with. And to be open to hear somebody else's struggle, to be able to empathize with that without saying, well, you think you've got it bad. This is what I'm dealing with. But to be able to be there for someone and to share and to be a safe place for someone is huge. Sometimes we don't have that. And because we don't have that, what we have to do is maybe we have to be able to give it to ourselves. What is your self-talk like? We talk worse to ourselves than we talk to anybody else anywhere. If we have a shame core that is alive and well, we put ourselves down, we just are brutal to ourselves and what we're doing and what we believe we are. What would happen if you could think of yourself in terms of you're doing the best you can? There again, I'm not saying it's the right thing, I'm not saying it's the best thing, but in a given moment, what if you were doing the best you could? If in that scenario with the mom and this child, what if her best in that moment was to yell at the child to get out of the road? Maybe that was the best thing that she could do in the moment. Now, in retrospect, maybe she beats herself up or talks negatively to herself because she doesn't feel that was appropriate. She doesn't feel that that's right. What kind of mom am I to do such a thing? And that's in retrospect. But in the moment, with the reaction, she was probably doing the best she could. In the retrospect moment, to be able to say, okay, if he does that again, maybe I can do this instead. Or maybe I can be mindful of this and myself so that I don't shame him, so that I don't make him feel bad, make me feel bad, and that we can move forward and things can be okay. The thing is if we blow it. You know, sometimes as moms, we just blow it. We don't act, we don't say or do the things that as perfect moms we want to do. But the thing is you can always circle back around. You can always go back and say, you can go back to the child in the, in timeout in his bedroom and say, I want to apologize. I want you to know that I was really scared and worried about you today, and that, you mean a lot to me, and I didn't mean to make you feel bad. You circle back around. And, it doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes later. If you say, well, yeah, but now my kids are teenagers or adults or whatever, you can still circle back around. There were times growing up that as I look back, I realize and recognize that I didn't handle things the way that I wish I had. And moving forward, these are the things that I would like to do. This is the relationship I would like to have with you. Now it's up to the other person whether or not they want to accept or move forward with that offer. But for you to be able to be responsible and accountable for your own actions is really important. So this, Brené calls it being generous in your assumption of others. This is not a free pass to say or do, oh, well, I was just doing the best I could. You have to have boundaries around it. You have to live within your own integrity. What are your values? Are you congruent with your values? And then to be able, within those boundaries, within your values, your integrity, to be generous with others. Maybe they're doing the best that they can. You're probably doing the best you can. If you need to make adjustments, if you need to make changes, that's striving for excellence. That's not perfectionistic tendencies. The perfectionistic tendencies there, again, goes back to what are people going to say? What are they going to think? What are they going to do? You have no control over that. None. But the pursuit of excellence is, how can I make my relationship better with my child? How can I make my relationship better with me? For me to be able to say, maybe things didn't work quite the way I would like for them to in this situation, but I did the best I could. Next time, maybe I can do it a little bit better. And to recognize you are not perfect. You're not going to be perfect. None of us are. But you are enough. And I hope you can embrace that and believe that. Thank you so much for letting me be here with you today.